All right, guys, so what's up? What's cracking? Got a Mick Ultra here. Today's the day. We took all the pans off. We got everything done, right? You saw the last video. So we got everything apart. So now what do we got to do? We got to strip all the old sealant off. And the idiot, whoever did this before, used a gray sealant. Never use a gray sealant. It's easy for me to strip, but never use a gray sealant in this. I'll show you when all said and done, but if you can see this little strip here, see how it's shiny? I started using my drill over here with a little brass brush on it. If you see this little brass brush here, it just goes on and you hit the little, hold on, see if I can click it. And it strips all that off. Now, because it's brass, it doesn't really hurt the aluminum there. Obviously, you don't want to sit in one spot forever, but you just take your good time and it just strips it all off. So I'm going to go around the rest of it here and strip all that sealant off. It does take some time, so please bear with me. So you can see my wife's feet right here. See these? This is my wife's feet. She wants to understand what we're doing here. So I'm trying to explain to her that here's the area that I've now stripped to about here. And I'm trying to explain to her when you do this is for the fact that when you put the oil pan on, there's sealant on it, honey. Does that make sense? Like, so they actually put like a gray sealant on it, as you can see here. And that's what holds, along with bolt, to keep the oil from coming out. So you bolt this up with the sealant, it keeps oil from coming out of it. Instead of using like a pre-made gasket, they literally just put like a sealant type gasket on it, stick it on, let it dry for 15 to 20 minutes, and then you're good. But to get it off, it's pretty hard. So you use one of these to help strip it off. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And it just sucks. That's why it's coming off like this. It's annoying and it just takes time. Your car's gonna be pretty when done. It's gonna be like me, it's gonna be beautiful.
Whatever.
That's just... I just actually dropped off the head over at A&C Motorsports, not Motorsports, but machining over in Hagerstown, Maryland. They actually machined my head for my car back in the day and did a great job. I think they took like 4 thou off. They didn't take much out at all off the head. They said it was pretty straight. So hopefully hers is too. But I'd like to do that just to be, you know, as careful as possible because I'm not decking the block. I'd rather have them mill the head and make sure everything is true as possible. I take a razor blade to the block, which I did on mine too, and it has been holding up all this time. Plus I'll have ARP head studs in it, which I want to show you everything that finally showed up for her car. So this is everything, guys. A lot of it's Toyota and a lot of it's performance stuff. I got to go everything with you, but just the basics here. So we have some GSC valve stem seals. You can use the factory Toyota ones. They work perfectly fine. But I use these GSC ones in my car and they're like 17 bucks. So I was like, okay, might as well just buy these. There's no difference between exhaust and intake side. They're all the same across the board. I bought these off Amazon, which they're titanium actual nuts. These are going to go for the exhaust studs. Which I just did that again because the stainless steel ones discolor. These will not discolor, but they get like this horrible oxidized look to them, where these won't. These will turn pretty colors. Some ARP head studs for a car. We've got a fluid dampener. I'm a big fan of fluid dampener for the fact that nothing needs machined. There's no rubber to go bad on it. It's a viscous fluid inside of it, so you never have to worry about it. And then everything else is Toyota parts. Something I wanted to tell you guys, if you buy an entire water pump assembly, which is this part number right here, if you buy that, it comes with the front and back. Now, most people only need the front, especially if you just need to replace the pump. The back, you don't need to. And if you buy it with that part number, didn't realize it comes with all the seals. So I bought the seals too because I've had all the part numbers from the years, and that's how I've done it in the past. But it comes with everything you need it to put it to the block. The line that goes here, a little bit of everything, which is actually quite nice. One thing I'll need to do though is I need to take this barb out, and I'll have this actually welded shut like I did on my car. Again, it's something I don't have to worry about then. We've got a brand new Toyota oil pump. Now, some people like to use modified ones. I do not. I remember talking to Jay Meager at Real Street back in the day, and something like J-Rock's car making 1,400 horsepower at the time, you know, he's running a factory oil pump, and he said, honestly, they work great. As long as you oil them up before the first time you use them, get oil through the system before you crank it up, they'll last you quite some time. So just go ahead and buy one of those and just keep it safe. Now the rest are just random seals and gaskets. We got the valve cover seals here. These are for the actual VVTi valve seal or valve cover gaskets. So we've got 12, 14, 4, 6, I believe that is. Yep, 46011. And then over here is 11, 213, 46030. One of them is specific for the one side, the other one's generic. Timing belts, and then just a bunch of random seals. We've got brand new exhaust gaskets because might as well, I don't feel like taking it on and off. I've got the shorter Toyota OEM studs, so if you see guys when they need the shorter studs, I just replace all the studs every time, and that's the part number for that if you're looking for it. Again, speaking of the gasket, this is the gasket that goes down to the bottom of the oil pan for the oil pickup. Need a new one of those. We've got new cam seals. If you guys want to know, the cam seals for a VVTi and non-VVTi are exactly the same. We've got a brand new front main seal. Let's hope I don't mess that up. Last time I actually had to order a new one because I didn't want to use it. I feel like I pinched it and didn't do it quite right, so I went and bought a new one just to be safe. Just some other random like O-rings and stuff here. Nothing else that's quite crazy. And the last cool thing is I went ahead and bought these. I'm going to actually head to Lowe's here and have these done. But these are key blanks. That's the part number for it. And this is an actual Toyota Supra key blank that you would have got back in the day. Bought 2 of them. I believe these are like $4 or $5. So I was like, I'm ordering all this stuff. I got to already pay shipping. I didn't want to pay $12 to ship keys. So I'm like, well, if I'm making this big order, I might as well get this. So again, that's the part number if you're looking for it. But that's it. So what I plan on doing here today is, though, putting the head studs in. This is actually quite easy, and these are reusable, unlike the factory ones like I mentioned in the last video. So I'd like to get this on, put the head gasket on, and kind of show you that, guys. This is actually quite easy. I won't be able to put the head on. I should get that back tomorrow, and then put that on, start cranking it down, and start putting everything else on. Hopefully get the oil pump on today too, which again, I'll take my time and show you guys how much sealant you'll need Toyota FIPG to put that on, which again, I'll show you. And you'll need to make sure you're using the actual oil pump bolts because they actually do center a certain way. So the bolts you took out, you need to put back in. I'll show you which ones go where and how that all works. All right, guys, so I've got the front main seal on here. What I want to show you is, flip it back over here because I got the Toyota FIPG, which I want to talk about. To get this in, you just want to set it on, right? Set it nice. And what I usually do is take my own fingers and press it down to get it tight, right? It's not going to sink down like this, but just to get it started. Then what I do is I take a large socket like this with a rubber mallet and just go around the edge and just slightly tap and keep going around and around and around and around. I also do not use any type of sealant around the edge of it here because I want it as tight as possible, but you take your time. Also, don't put any sealant here. That's how you're gonna get leaks. Once that's in, you gotta make sure it is flush with the edge of this. You don't wanna press it down in because you don't want it to actually sit and rest against the actual crank gear there for the oil pump. Once you do that, you wanna flip it over like so. Now, I've got my handy dandy Toyota book here. Is that rock? Really? Really? Fucker. God damn it. Anyways, so I got my little handy dandy book here. It tells you how to apply the sealant here. It's pretty easy though. You can see the little ridges. It says 2 to 3 millimeters around that. I always add a little too much because I always do. But you want to make sure you run it around. It tells you exactly how you need to run it in the book here. So you go up on the inside part of it and goes up, back inside, and the whole way down here. And you can see again, it has these little ridges. Now before you do that, guys, I do highly recommend make sure you check the front of your block. I make sure there's no oil on this. Like what I'm gonna do here next, take some brake cleaner to all the front of this here, clean this all off. It looks like there's some residue there. I've taken a razor to this over and over again, but I just can't get everything off. You can see some oil sitting in there. You wanna also make sure you put in your oil pump rings. So you got a ring there and a ring there. The other ones, and that's for your water pumps, you don't need to worry about that. But you wanna make sure you put in your 2 oil pump rings before you plop that on or you'll be pretty unhappy. Also, guys, before I forget here, here's the part number you'll need for the actual O-ring that goes from the oil filter to the block. I screwed this up for years. I was buying the one that went in between on the twin turbo model that went from like here down to the cooler. This is the one that you need for the actual seal that goes to the block. Now, another thing I want to show you again, even though it has threading on it, don't put a bolt in it. There's no bolt that goes on it. That's just a guide to position it in the correct manner. And then your actual filter goes there, and that's it. I always use the NA ones, and I just ordered the plug that goes here, which I'll have to get you guys that part number 2 so you know which one to use.
2 outboard seats and a middle seat like you have in those sedans. But the first thing you notice when you climb back here is that it's pretty tight in the center. And finally, the last thing worth mentioning back here is that I really like the look of the...
All right, guys, I just looked it up. It's 15 pound-feet, so...
Had it before, a lot of them more expensive Mercedes-Benz did. It definitely feels a lot heavier than A-Class. In fact, it's surprising to me because it only has 20 more horsepower than the A-Class, but it feels considerably faster. It's just got a lot more pads. Surprisingly, quick throttle response, which is not something I usually say about turbo four cylinders that have about 200 horsepower. Usually they're slow to respond to anything. But this one is pretty good. Nice, comfortable ride here. Ride surprisingly well, actually. Better than I expected.
All right, guys, that's everything then. That's all cranked down. You can see, too, I cleaned up all the bolts. They weren't gold. They're like brown before. Went ahead and cleaned all those up. Cleaned the two longer bolts down here. The two longer bolts go there, and then you have the rest of the gold-looking bolts. So that's done, and let's move on to the next part. All right, guys, next up, we're putting the studs in. Now, you can see one here. I just put in, what you're going to do is you're going to put it in finger tight and then just crank it down just a little bit. Make sure it's tight. Now, when I mean crank it down, don't like wrench it in. Just use the top of this just to get it. Once you feel pressure, let off, and that's it. They're not torqued down anything or anything like that. No lubes needed. Chase the threads, though. One thing I recommend 1000% is chase the threads before you put it in. Use a little bit of oil or grease, whatever you prefer, and to pull out any debris or anything, but chase the threads to make sure it goes in nicely. If you watch here, this should go in pretty easily now. Well, we'll just show you one here. So I did that one, put it in by finger tight. I haven't even put this on it yet. So we have the first one here, put it in like so, and I'm just using my fingers, and it should just go down in. You can see it's going out really easily. Just makes life easy if you chase the threads, because look how nice it goes down now. Now it does eventually bottom out. These are blind holes. They're obviously not the whole way through, so they are blind holes, so you don't crank too much because you can incur extra pressure on the block and eventually crack the block, which you don't want to do. Now what I'm going to do is top of this, make sure it's the whole way down. Yep, that's down. And this one too. Now this one had a little bit more, I guess. Wait. Yeah, and now that's tight. Now I don't want to go any more than that. I want to put any real torque on it. It says right on the ARP instructions not to do so. So I'm just going to repeat this process now across the board. Alright guys, so next up now that those are all in, we got to put in our multi-layer factory twid head gasket. Now what I mean by multi-layer is literally, as you can see here, multiple layers to it. These are with the same gaskets the guys making 15, 2,000, whatever horsepower, the guys are just using factory head gasket. They just work. Period, end of story, they just freaking work. It's what everyone uses. You do need to make sure that you put these little dowel pins in. That's what helps center the head and make sure this sits on right. I got my front and the back one here. Now you just slip this on over. Now it is directional, so I mean, you pretty much can only put it on one way. So slip this down over. Come on. And we're on. Now the next thing I would want to do is put the head on, but I don't have it back yet. I'm hoping I pick it up tomorrow from the machine shop. If I can, I'll show you guys what you have to do with the washers and get all that stuff on. There goes a sight from my soul.